Welcome to Studying Law Around the World. I'm Claudio Klaus. In each episode, I talk with lawyers, law students, and professors from different parts of the world to talk about legal education, careers, and what the profession looks like in real life. We talk about the hard parts, the surprises, and the decisions that shaped their paths. Whether you're planning to study abroad, thinking about working in another legal system, or just curious about how law works around the world, this podcast is for you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Studying Law Around the World. Today, I'm receiving here and hosting Cristiano Therrien. He has an incredible story and an incredible career. He has over 25 years of experience at the intersection of law, technology, and governance. He's currently based in Toronto and is completing the Global Professional LLM at the University of Toronto. And he brings lots of very incredible experiences to his career, but also to this podcast today. So I wanted to thank you so much for making the time to come and share a few insights with us today, Cristiano.
Hi. Hello there. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And to start off our podcast, I'd love for you to tell us a little more about, yourself. I know you teaching multiple law schools, and you've done quite incredibly well, in different programs as well, both academically and in your own law firm as well. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
I'm a binational citizen from childhood because my mother's Brazilian, my father's Quebecois he's a Canadian from Quebec, and I grew up in this binational, bilingual, biracial family. And I did my undergrad in Brazil in law. Then I had I did my master degree in Spain in law and technology at the time. I was an intern in the National Personal Data Protection Agency. And I came back to Brazil to be a lawyer again. Then to be a lawyer, I spent 12, 13 years as a lawyer only in the IT area field. That's what I did, but also at the same time, I was a law professor. And I taught in some different universities, at least 4 or 5 different universities there. And coming to Canada, I came for a doctorate, and I plan to come back to Brazil, but no plans, right? So they changed. So I stayed in Canada, where I have most of my family here, especially in the Quebec region. And after my doctorate, I went for a postdoc in University of Ottawa, and it was in the area of AI and regulation. It was the time. A few months later, this new thing came up. It was called ChatGPT, by the way, and things changed since then. Then I went to work for the City of Montreal. I was working in data governance for the City of Montreal for 30 months. And I was teaching University of Montreal. I was teaching in Ottawa. I was teaching Brazilian universities online most of the time, unfortunately, to Brazil. But I'm here in Toronto now. I'm teaching at the Toronto Metropolitan University as well. I'm teaching contract law at TMU. And I teach cyberspace law at the University of Montreal. And I teach legal research as well. And
No, that's much appreciated. Thank you so much for making the time to share a little bit more of that. I wanted to ask you, you've moved then between Brazil and Canada, practice, academia, public sector, private work, as you just outlined. And looking back, what are some of the key decisions that shaped your path? And maybe if you were, talking to young lawyers today, in any country that they choose to practice, what are, a few things that maybe you would do differently if it was, in 2026?
well, uh, well, yeah, of course. Because people have to know that I studied law in the last century, right? In fact, the last millennia. But some things changed meanwhile. When I started law, we were writing with typing machines at the time in law firms. And for example, I have to use carbon copy paper to have copies when working as an intern in law firms. Even if I had a computer at home, and only the lawyer had a computer then in the law firm. But What I can say from them then for now is because I think we are talking to many people who have different careers, right? So I think this is way to understand my path is to say that it looks non-linear, but for me, never felt disconnected because well, I had this experience because of my personal experience that comes between places in Brazil. In Brazil, by the way, I was called Canadians by my friends, and here I was always the Brazilian for my family, my Quebec family. Uh, but so I always had the experience of seeing things from more than one perspective. I was never from one place, just one vision. So what they stayed with me, was it made me very attentive to how different cultures and institutions understand the same reality in different ways. And that connects to my work today. I never saw technology as something outside society. I see it as part of our culture. It changes how we think, how we decide, how we organize ourselves. My work has been to understand what it means, what that means for law, but what it means for society. I went to law because I wanted to work in government, by the way. I want to fix things different at the time in society. And for that, law is very useful. But uh, what I do differently, I wish I kept programming when I got to law school because I stopped there programming in the middle of law school. So, because things would be easier now. But now I'm back to programming because programming became so easy now again. So it's fun. You can finish one night to have you do 3, 4 different things. It's ready already. So much is have never been fun. More fun than now programming, more accessible. So
Amazing. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I feel like many early career lawyers feel that pressure to follow a straight path. So
mhm.
I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more of your career, as you described it, not as linear. And I'm curious, what helped you to stay confident while taking these less traditional steps as you went about your career?
No, I have also never saw law as something linear, really, because when I was in law school, I had already spent some years out of Brazil and in Canada. I decided to do law in Brazil when I was in Canada. By the way, I was at the time decided what to do. I was not even there. So many people see law as a structure, like a tree, or the just positivism view sees law as a pyramid and a pyramid plane with many pyramids inside of this pyramid, different areas of law. As a tree is the many branches of different areas of law. You start somewhere and move up. That's what people teach you at law school. I always saw it more like a network. And then one of my decisions to do law in Canada, it was because of this vision of law as a network. In a network, seeing law as a network, you move between nodes, different roles, different countries, different institutions, but it's still inside the same system. And you communicate with different parts of the system. So, and that helped me a lot. Um, that what might see some deviation from an outside from the outside felt from the inside is is more like exploration. And talking about myself, I to feel confident also about this. I entered law school early, more than 30 years ago, and I never really felt left. Okay, I was always in a law classroom, in the front, on the back, in the side. Well, I never left. I really never left. Even though I was working on other things, I was still in a law school in some way. So and I never saw laws theory. I wanted to see things happen. That's why also I was never fully only in academia. That's also so I moved into practice. I built small legal tech tools. At the time it didn't call this startup, right? We I have this company. Of course, it didn't succeed, but it succeeded to teach me, right? So and then I moved into government. In yeah. The thing that keeps me confident is that technology is always brings us so many solutions, and when it comes with solutions, it always brings us new problems, and it's never boring. Sometimes you want it to be boring, but it's never boring. And there's no 1 week that I don't have a new AI thing. Oh no, I have to study this thing. So that's it.
Amazing. No, I love that. It's interesting. I was just listening to a podcast earlier this week, and they've made a funny comment. They said that you probably would need to be unemployed to be able to keep up with all the AI news. And I'm like, well, that sounds about right. That sounds about right.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
36 hours a day, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now that you're, for quite some time, teaching in law school, and just like you said, you never left, being a student, being a professor in so many different roles. Based on what you see, and what you experience with your students up until this day, what are some of the biggest blind spots you think you see for lawyers who are either entering or re-entering the profession?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and, after our discussion here, I have to come back to grading students for them, and then tomorrow I have to have to start studying for the weekend because I have this very different life now. I'm a part of the time I'm in class, worried about students, and a part of my time I'm in class again, but worried about the professors, right? So I'm learning about this practice also. Um, law gave me agency. You help to understand systems. You have learn to act within them. But teaching gave me rigor. If you have to teach something, you have to understand it properly, so you can answer the questions, right? And government changed everything for me when I went to the government because I started reviewing contracts with the city. Was problematic. I had to understand it. That's not fully understood. I had to move to, so I did so many things there, and one of the reason I went to a doctorate was to solve some problems were inside of my head after 8 years in law government. It's very interesting because for me at least, because so many ethical conflicts that you can live in a government, and that's known thing, right? Um, it's better not to know how sausages and laws are made, right? What people say. So I'll bring to why the first thing I started teaching in Canada was ethics and professionalism, and one of the biggest blind spots I see in young lawyers is how they understand ethics. They think that is ethical judgments intuitive, that it will recognize it what is right when the moment comes, and it's a gut feeling, but it's not. Ethics is a process. It requires slowing down, thinking carefully, sometimes resisting pressure. And there is this distinction from this guy, Daniel Kahneman, yeah, between fast thinking and slow thinking. The legal practice push you towards fast thinking many times. So yeah, you have to do things fast and work on legal reflex. But ethical decisions usually require slow thinking. And early careers lawyers are under a lot of pressure here in Canada. They work long hours, expectations, not always much support, and that's where shortcuts can happen. And I have seen the consequences, not always dramatic, but people losing confidence or even leaving the profession, feeling bad about it. So the blind spot is thinking ethics as flexible or intuitive. It is not. It has to be built in a deliberate way.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I think sometimes we'll get caught up in different things, and I also really appreciate you mentioning this whole thing of, it's easy to say that there's no necessary like a procedure, that there's a gut feeling and all of that, but if there's something that you learned working with people from different cultures, different age groups and all of that, whatever people consider to be obvious, it can really vary from person to person, from upbringing, cultural, and all of that. And thinking about all of these, you do work and teach and research in AI and technology and the intersection of that with law. So I'm sure there's lots to speak on that.
Oh yeah.
Um, we do see that every third one is about something on AI, right? We just said how that they would have to have 36 hours to keep up with that. But if a well-intentioned junior lawyer wants to start using AI today in a responsible way, and maybe in an environment where there's no AI policy, or there's no necessarily an incentive or guidance, what are maybe some of the simple use cases that they should focus on in their daily work?
Of course, of course. And one of the major misunderstanding is to treat AI as a single tool that you can quickly master, or you should do this over the weekend, or okay, let me spend 1 week doing this. And in reality, it is an ecosystem. There's so many things. When we say artificial intelligence, which is a very bad name, by the way, but in reality, it's ecosystem. For example, it is machine learning. Yes, it is, but it's big data. It is cloud computing. It is Internet of Things. It is telecommunications. So many elements are there. So, and now we sprinkle AI, this magic, this dust we sprinkle over things to say that is technological. I can say that I have seen moments before with computer happening like this. I was in law school when computers got into the life of law professors and lawyers. They didn't know what to do at the time. I started teaching technology when I was at law school. Each time people either underestimate, I don't need that. No, I don't have to jump in this. Oh, we'll wait. Or they think that they understood it too quickly. And it's even worse now because this one is more difficult. uh, so the real adjustment is more intellectual than of knowledge itself. You have to stay open. You have to stay humble. We and many people are calling themselves AI specialists, but just remember, ChatGPT was launched in 2022, November 2022. So become a specialist so fast, it's not easy. I don't say that I'm a specialist, and I have been this. My first publication on AI was in 2019. So maybe I have been teaching this from 2004. Sometimes I still have to, because it doesn't never stops, right? So, but stay open, stay humble. I have 3 practical uses. First, try 10, 12 hours, 15 hours. To try to experiment with this, because it's not a good tool that you can learn in an hour, 2 hours. It's worse than learning to drive a car, right? In many ways, because have because also there are so many tools. Don't if you go to work, ChatGPT is one way. So you have to spend time trying different things and seeing where it goes. And you have to challenge your reasoning. You have to ask for trying alternatives ways. Don't just look for answers. That's the first thing. Second thing is use AI to structure your work. So you treat AI like a assistant. Okay, so that's the second one. And the third one would be work with context, because it's no longer for just about using clever prompts. In the past, it was. I taught many courses in prompt engineering, but now from 2005 2026 now, it is about giving better information and building better workflows. You build your library around you, have your information, AI tools gets to know you, and you get a better frame, what kind of output, what is good for you. You have your methods, but your methods also include providing better input. So and also one important thing, do not rely on a single tool. um, please know different systems behave differently, and that's part of the learning. You don't have to be team ChatGPT or team Claude or team something, because they can change a lot. 1 year ago, Gemini was ridiculous. Now I work with this for many things every day. And Claude, was something extra, and now I that's my favorite to write. ChatGPT is better, is many things too. Depends on what you need, right?
Amazing, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And I'm curious now on more of a somebody who's thinking about policy and working in this intersection. I'm curious, how do you see AI changing the role of lawyers, both in the public and in the private sector over the next 5-10 years, if just since ChatGPT has been launched, so much more is possible, even though there is a lot of people who do implement AI in their workflows. I don't know if you can say yet that there is a change in the role that lawyers play, or there is a substantial change on how the profession is practiced.
Yeah. I have to avoid being very futurist here, even if I love it because I'm a huge science fiction geek, and who I know no one that read more science fiction than me, maybe. Uh, but I can say some things that I think are the tendency anyway. Um, for for example, in the public sector, that I know a little bit more because I was closer to them for a while, but also private sector. AI changes where lawyers add value. Okay, because much of the legal work involves what we call pattern recognition. And in law, we have many patterns and we have a lot of text. And these texts have many patterns. That's what lawyers do very well. These are what we call complicated problems. Okay. Yeah, they're complicated, of course, but it's structured, they're rule based. And AI is very good at that to deal with this. To you're gonna treat information this way, if then this, if then this, and AI is great for that. But the thing is, law also deals with complex problems, and complex problems is another thing. It has to do with judgment, with values, with uncertainty, competing interests, and for that, there is no simple workflow for that. So what happens is a shift here. So AI can support the structured work, so lawyers can spend more time on the complex parts of the work. And for the public sector, you're mentioning it is critical because decision affects rights and trust of people. And in the private sector, is also critical because many things we have to do, we deal with very competing interests as well, and they can be very conflictive. So that's why also becoming remember the ethical part that is more getting closer to lawyers than before. Yes, we can do more. But one thing I need to leave it clear, my for everyone, it is that you're not going to work less. Okay, so no technology came ever to help you to work less. Okay, don't be hopeful. You have extra hours in a day. Nope, you might get more productive, but yeah, more performance will be expected from you. Yes, and if you're not using AI properly, you have to compete in the ones that are being getting their performance enhanced. Look at the good way. Many boring parts of the work can be sent to AI to help you do, right? And the role becomes less about processing information and more about responsibility and people. And lawyers are supposed to be people who are good with people. So that's my hint for the very near future.
Amazing. I really appreciate you bringing those up. And to wrap up today's conversation, we're looking at now imagining, young lawyers, early career professionals, maybe people who are, in their trial year, wrapping up law school, who are thinking about building that career in technology law, AI regulation, all of these intersections of law, technology, or really, being able to use it to advance in their careers. What skills should they prioritize right now? I love that you just said, lawyers are supposed to be good with people, but what should they, ignore despite the hype as well?
Okay. First, strong human skills. Okay, to go. So communication, judgment, working with people, right? Second, please keep reading or don't give up in reading. And social media doesn't count as reading, by the way. So not only legal and just legal text, they don't count too. Okay, you need to read out also outside of law. So of course, I would recommend science fiction. It helps you think about possible futures. We use future scenarios to discuss questions of today. So, but the thing is, when I came to use a reference, something you'd be between science fiction and fantasy. So when I started in law and technology, this scholarship was like the Tatooine planet. You see, it was just a desert with a few oases, one one wise man here and there saying strange things, and some young running free and doing stupid things. So, anyways, now the field of law and technology seems more like Coruscant. Coruscant, it is a city planet, right? The capital of the galaxy, the Republic, and because this whole planet is a city, right? So you see, there's so many people, so many layers, and and that's why you now have many people, many things to see. So one very strong thing in law technology is that we treat law as risk management in many ways. Okay, we are always talking about risk here, risk there, things you need is an exercise of pessimism. Okay, law and technology in many ways. And the European law is very good. They even mention risk, levels of risk in AI, for example. And we have been working for this, but also in the last 10 years, having saying a lot about governance. This word is new in law in many ways. In 15 years ago, we wouldn't say that so often. Now it say it all the time. Both are important, but they're not enough. Because law, for the classical approach of law was about conflict resolution. When we went to law school, for example, civil law, we were discussing this. Have a conflict, we need to solve it. But also, maybe we can prevent it. But also, criminal law in other areas would say law as social control. In many ways, law is also about social control and how we can make people behave better in society. So many people in criminal law and constitutional law will talk about law as social solidarity. We have this society want to make to work together, people to be happy and have full lives. So we have to deal with this other perspective. But there is so many inequalities. It is unfair in so many ways. Law is also about power relations with this. So there are many ways that we see law. And if you're working in a corporate, working with companies, and working with law and technology law, you also need to see law as a game, right? I cannot just try to regulate AI only with risk and governance when we know that law is so much more and has so many other pressures. So we cannot ignore that, because if you reduce our perspective, you miss what matters. So the challenge is not simply to follow technology; it is try to understand what it's doing to the way you organize our society and where we want to go. Where wanna just are we going just to accept, for example, right now, that every near future movie it is dystopic? It is every near. Do you know any near future movie that doesn't say there's something very apocalyptic in the near future? Or we have none that in the near future they didn't have lawyers anymore. So yeah, the justice system was able to detain, incarcerate, and send to prison 4 hours because they cut the lawyers. I don't think that is a very optimistic way of seeing the future either. Okay, so I don't think I want to see lawyers in the future too. So we start thinking about more positive ways of about our future, and that has to do with technology. My way to discuss this was using public policy and smart cities.
Amazing. No, I really appreciate you making the time to come on the show to share a little bit about your perspective, your experience, and your advice. So thank you for really making the time. I appreciate it, Cristiano. Thank you all for tuning into today's episode.